I give the floor to His Excellency Frederick, Minister for Foreign Affairs and Immigration of the Bahamas.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wish to say before my printed remarks begin some words not circulated in the text. This is a particular privilege and honor to represent my country in this forum, having returned here through the magic of democracy after 5 years. Our country then, for the first time since the general election in May, now reaffirms its re-engagement in and with the world community. We are part of the larger Caribbean region, and in that context took part in a meeting with the Honourable Secretary General of this body. We thank him for his courtesy. However, it is important that the representations from the Bahamas on regional engagement with the UN not be misinterpreted as a complaint about lack of attention by the Secretariat. It was not based in petulance, but in this simple fact that the United Nations in all its organs must live up to its creed in all its organs and manifestations that all nations in this body are equal and not create the impression that some are more equal than others. Our delegation shall continue to ensure that the guiding principle of equality and equity is adhered to strictly. Mr. President, I congratulate you on the assumption of your duties to preside over the work of this august body during the 67th session and assure you of my delegation's support and cooperation throughout. I also commend your predecessor for his stewardship of the previous session of the General Assembly. And I wish also on this occasion to thank for her stellar work and contribution to our country our Ambassador to the United Nations, Ambassador Paulette Bethel. Mr. President, the Bahamas commends the United Nations for the convening and outcome of the high-level meeting on the rule of law at the national and international levels last Monday. The Bahamas has committed itself to the principle of the rule of law and to ensuring that good governance for the benefit of the entire populace of the Bahamas continues. The Bahamas is committed also to adhering to the rule of law at the international level and to upholding the principles of the charter of this organization. The Bahamas commends the convening in June last of the third biennial review of the United Nations Global Counterterrorism Strategy. And the Bahamas unequivocally condemns terrorism in all its forms and manifestations and reiterates its commitment to the fight against terrorism as well as to the strategy's full implementation. The Bahamas renews the call for the timely conclusion of negotiations on a draft comprehensive international convention for the elimination of terrorism. The Bahamas condemns in the strongest possible terms the violence that resulted in the deaths of Ambassador Christopher Stevens and 3 other U.S. diplomats a few weeks ago. We in the international community must commit wholeheartedly and sincerely to creating a culture of peace throughout the world, underpinned by tolerance and understanding which precludes such outrageous occurrences and their causes. Mr. President, the increasing level of armed violence and crime plaguing our society, due in large part to the illicit trade in small arms and light weapons and trafficking in narcotics, neither of which our country manufactures or supplies, cannot be allowed to continue if we are to save successive generations from a life steeped in violence and lawlessness. It's been more than a decade since the adoption in 2001 of the United Nations Programme of Action to prevent, combat, and eradicate the illicit trade in small arms and light weapons in all its aspects. Yet, there has been no abatement in the level and intensity of armed violence impacting our country. The Bahamas welcomes the recent convening and successful outcome of the United Nations Conference to review progress made in the implementation of the Programme of Action to prevent, combat, and eradicate the illicit trade in small arms and light weapons in all its aspects. My government The government reiterates its unwavering commitment to the full implementation of the program of action. Mr. President, the lives of too many of our young people are being destroyed by the use of illicit weapons in our country. And now is the time to act. Mr. President, creating a safe Bahamas is a top priority for the government. And we are committed to the creation of a national intelligence agency, national firearms control strategy, including the establishment of a firearms department and database, as well as to enhancing the operations of the country's defense force to more effectively control the porous borders of the Bahamas. And I want to take this opportunity to thank the United Nations Office for Disarmament Affairs and the United Nations Regional Center for Peace, Disarmament and Development in Latin America and the Caribbean for their support and provision of equipment and capacity building assistance in the area of firearms destruction and stockpile management. The Bahamas was pleased to conclude an agreement with the Office for Disarmament Affairs in April last, and to have participated in a number of regional training programs and workshops sponsored by the UNILAREC, or the Illicit Trade in Small Arms and Light Weapons, and the Strengthening of Border Controls. Mr. President, the Bahamas joins other delegations in expressing our profound disappointment for the outcome of the United Nations Conference on the Arms Trade Treaty held in July last, and the failure of member states to agree on a text despite 6 long years of protracted negotiations. The Bahamas supports the views articulated by the delegation of Trinidad and Tobago on behalf of CARICOM during the month-long conference. Now, what we say is to thousands of innocent victims is their voices must be heard. What do we say to them and their families who are suffering as a result of the irresponsible and unregulated international transfer of conventional arms? A reassessment of human life and dignity versus profit and commitment are critical if we are to prevail in our fight against the scourge of armed violence and terror plaguing our societies. We look forward to a successful outcome of the next round of negotiations. Mr. President, the Bahamas solemnly reaffirms its commitment to the 3 pillars of sustainable development: economic, social, and environmental. Advancements continue nationally in important areas pertaining to the protection of our biodiversity and development of policies to promote renewable energy. Some argue that finding out how to provide reliable and affordable energy may be the single largest factor affecting the future development of the Bahamas. This issue is so important, the issue of energy, that the Prime Minister has taken it as a personal mission to solve this issue. And we know that we must do it sustainably. The Bahamas has enacted legislation to foster the sustainable use and management of ecosystems through better land use planning. Under the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, we have initiated actions to preserve our fish stocks by introducing penalties for overfishing. And we've also taken action to ban longline fishing, to establish the Bahamas as a sanctuary for sharks, and to establish and expand marine protected areas. For the Bahamas, it is imperative that these sustainable development strategies are complemented with appropriate actions taken by the international community. In this respect, we view the historic outcome of the Rio 20 conference as offering significant opportunities, particularly for small island states. We are encouraged by the international community's call for continued and enhanced efforts to assist SIDS in implementing the Barbados Plan of Action and the Mauritius Strategy of Implementation. The Bahamas also welcomes the convening of the 3rd International Conference on Small Island States, Barbados Plus 20, and will participate actively in the upcoming General Assembly consultations to determine the modalities of the meeting, with a view to ensuring a successful outcome. And the Bahamas is also encouraged greatly by the decision taken at the Rio Conference to undertake work on universal, action-oriented, sustainable development goals. In doing so, we must take into account different national realities, capacities, and levels of development, and respect national policies and priorities. The Bahamas hopes to work in the context of the open-ended working group for the development of the Sustainable Development Goals, as well as the Intergovernmental Committee on Financing, agreed at Rio 20 to ensure that our special concerns are fully addressed. Mr. President, in this connection, the Bahamas looks forward to the recommendations of the high-level panel of the Secretary General on global post-2015 development planning and commends the level of female participation therein. The convening on this panel offers a major opportunity to learn from the mistakes of the past and build a vision for global development beyond mere crisis management. This panel must be seen to operate with open transparency. It should also incorporate the views of geographical and economic anomalies, such as those of the Caribbean sub-region, and be innovative and forward-looking. The Bahamas welcomes the acknowledgement at Rio of the need to address the adverse impacts of climate change. And the Bahamas believes that the United Nations has a central role to play in global economic governance. The Bahamas welcomes the efforts of the G20, particularly Mexico, in her role as current chair, in helping to translate G20 deliberations into effective actions on a global scale through broad consultation among member states and with the UN itself to find solutions to many of the major challenges of our times, most particularly with respect to strengthening the international financial system. Mr. President, the Bahamas also envisions a greater role for the United Nations in the area of international cooperation in tax matters. And in this connection, the Bahamas, along with the wider Group of 77 in China, continues to call for the conversion of the UN Committee of Experts on International Cooperation on Tax Matters into an intergovernmental subsidiary body of the ECOSOC, in keeping with the Doha Mandate. We also continue to deplore the use of some states of their domestic laws for extraterritorial effect in such areas as human trafficking, financial services, and drug smuggling. We continue to believe that these laws with extraterritorial effect are misplaced and put an unfair burden upon small states and may be interpreted as a departure from the international norms of respect for the sovereignty and territorial integrity of states. Mr. President, in order to reverse current economic trends, one of the core imperatives of the government of the Bahamas is the strengthening of the domestic economy and the attendant creation of jobs, the broadening of Bahamian ownership in the economy, and the attainment of a higher standard of living. Creating job opportunities and reversing the unacceptable unemployment situation in the country, which presently stands at a high rate, they have all been identified at the highest political level as the most critical near-term priorities for the government. And this is especially so in relation to young Bahamians. And I wish to speak especially on their behalf today. The young Bahamian sector of our country has been most severely affected by the unemployment problem. And this rate of unemployment is unacceptable and cannot continue. We are committed to solving youth unemployment. The Bahamas underscores the need for enhanced policy dialogue and international cooperation on the question of building green economies, which will indeed require new investments, skills formation, technology development and transfer, and capacity building. The gross national income of the Bahamas is significantly affected by a small population of wealthy expatriates whose high incomes skew the measure away from the true economic realities. The construct of per capita gross national income, therefore, takes on a unique interpretation in the context of developing countries like the Bahamas, and I would dare say the Caribbean sub-region. The Bahamas continues to be deserving of considerations which will not deny us the right to develop sustainably, supported by financial, human, and technological resources. Gross national income per capita should not be used as a pretext to restrict our access to financial assistance. Mr. President, the General Assembly is set to consider during this 67th session the scale of assessments for the apportionment of the expenses of the United Nations, regular budgeted peacekeeping operations for the period 2013 to 2015. The Bahamas takes this opportunity to reiterate her long-standing position that per capita gross national income, for the reasons given, should not be accorded overriding weight in determining capacity to pay. Mr. President, a representative, transparent, responsive, accountable, democratic, and inclusive Security Council, predicated on an increased membership in both the permanent and non-permanent categories, as well as modification of its working methods, is overdue. My delegation sincerely hopes that the next round of negotiations on Security Council reform during this session will result in tangible progress aimed at making the Council all that it can and should be. Mr. President, our desire for the realization of unfulfilled potential also extends to our regional partner, the Republic of Haiti. The Bahamas has been unremitting and consistent in her support for the people of Haiti and their aspirations for peace, security, and development. The Bahamas commends the important role the United Nations Stabilization Mission in Haiti is doing in providing security in Haiti and in laying the foundation for its long-term recovery and stability. Pledges made toward Haiti's recovery and reconstruction must be honored and fulfilled so that the required work can be undertaken and completed. Mr. President, the Bahamas welcomes increased dialogue and improving international cooperation with respect to international migration and development. Illegal migration from Haiti is a vexing issue for our country. We agree that proper cooperation can certainly help to ensure that migration occurs through safe and regulated channels, as well as leverage the contributions that migrants can make to the development of our country. The Bahamas will continue to participate constructively in the process leading to the second high-level dialogue on international migration and development to be held by the General Assembly in 2013, with a view to addressing these and other related issues so crucial to our development. Given the events over the past year in the Bahamas with regard to illegal migration, some tragic, and poaching in our seas from illegal persons from the south of us, the Bahamas will be taking stronger measures over the next year to put a stop to these illegal activities. And we appeal to all nations in the region to prevail upon their citizens to cease and desist from these unlawful activities. We intend to work both bilaterally and with the broader international community to stop these assaults on our national and economic security. Mr. President, the Bahamas has made significant strides in the area of maternal and child health and HIV/AIDS in this, the 50th year since women obtained the right to vote in the Bahamas. We are committed to the achievement of gender equality and the empowerment of women, as was affirmed by the Minister of Social Services during the consideration of the Bahamas' report on the Committee on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women at its 52nd session held in July last year. The Bahamas, nevertheless, remains concerned about the increasing incidences of non-communicable diseases among the population, in particular women who are disproportionately affected by such preventable diseases. Mr. President, we can draw much strength, wisdom, and inspiration from the remarkable successes of our nation's athletes nationally and sub-regionally at this year's Olympics. And I would like, on behalf of my delegation, to pay tribute to the youth of the world for their stellar displays of camaraderie and talent at the last Olympics. And in particular, in this forum, I wish to salute the gold medal athletes of the Bahamas Demetrius Pinder, Michael Matthew, Chris Brown, and Ramon Miller. Indeed, the performances of the athletes from the entire CARICOM region are noteworthy, particularly those of our sister countries of Grenada, Jamaica, and Trinidad and Tobago. These examples can be viewed as contributing as much to the peace and development in our world as our deliberations and initiatives at this session. So our warmest congratulations to them all. My delegation also wishes to record in this forum the passing of my late friend and brother, the late Paul L. Adderley, who was the longest-serving Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Bahamas, whose tenure included the most critical foreign policy challenges to date of an independent Bahamas, and who sadly died on the 19th of September. He believed in this world body and its tenets, and exemplified how it can assist small states. It is therefore only fitting that we mark and record his passing. The Bahamas continues to believe that mankind can aspire to and achieve a higher inner strength, which can not only cause us to excel beyond even our dreams, but can lift all around us, even nations and the entire world. So, may each one of us reach for this inner strength and change our world, transform an agenda of problems into covenants of partnership. It remains as true as always, now, more than ever, we need the United Nations. Thank you.